Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about player feedback and live design, two terms I'm sure you've seen if you watch the anniversary live streams from Dead by Daylight. I went back the past hour and just checked out every single live stream that they've had for their anniversaries, going back 5 years, and they say essentially the exact same thing in every single video. We're going to be more receptive to player feedback, and we use live design to have balancing updates and things like that. For those who don't know what live design is, it's just the way you make a live game. A live game, another term of it, is a game as a service. It's one that, like Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is not a live game. It comes out, they do a couple of bug fixes over the months, and then that's it. Game as a service is one that every few months it gets new content. They reiterate on old content, keeps people coming back and playing the game. That's what a live game is. And live game design is just simply how you make a live game. If they didn't use live design, it wouldn't be a live game. A lot of people think this is some like proprietary behavior thing where they're trying something new, but it's just literally the only way to do it. If they didn't have live design, then it wouldn't be a live game. Simple as that. They say these phrases every single year. They say these, we're going to be using live design to get player feedback, and we're going to be iterating on that at a faster rate. They say these things every single year. This is why I've gotten a little cynical about the game, because I've heard them say this so many times in a row. Not much really changes. And so I was going to make this video kind of just shitting on them and circle jerking all that they don't listen to our feedback. But, I really thought about it this past year. It wouldn't be fair. They actually have listened to player feedback pretty consistently, at least this year. Everything from Skull Merchant to map design, stuff like that. They have been pretty receptive and fairly expedient on acting on that, player feedback. And so it wouldn't be fair. I think this year they're actually doing kind of a bit better than they usually do. So I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to talk about is how, despite the fact that they do listen to player feedback, we still continually have so many issues with the game. And I think it really boils down to, and it sounds like such a severe statement to say lightheartedly, they just don't fully understand what makes DBD fun. And it sounds like such a fundamental thing to not understand. But I think that is the only the only explanation for what's going on here. Because at the current cycle, here's the cycle of DBD's balance. They have new content. Something is wrong with the new content. And then the mid-chapter patch, they do updates every month and a half. The mid-chapter patch looks at something that they've previously made that was not great, attempts to fix it. Sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. And then however that goes, they're receptive to player feedback. They change that thing based on player feedback, and that's great. And then the new chapter drops, and they have the same issues again. So I've talked about this before, they just dilute the pool. As soon as they fix something old, they just introduce something new that's just as problematic as the thing they just tried to fix that might not have even been fixed, like Red Forest, for example. So we have an endless cycle of them just not ever actually fixing the game overall because they have bad stuff come out at the same rate that they release, or that they fix old stuff that was problematic. And that boils back down to them fundamentally not understanding what makes the game fun. Because how they listen to feedback is on a case-by-case basis. Hey, the Skull Merchant has these issues. These are the problems with Skull Merchant. Hey, the map Borgo has some really bad issues here. Hey, the Knight has these specific problems. And they look at that and try to fix it. And that's great. But they don't look at the grand feedback, which is, hey, this particular thing is not fun. The concepts here are not fun. It's kind of good that they were addressing face camping in this video. That's more of the kind of thing, the fundamental game design aspects that they need to take feedback on, not like just this is broken, just this is broken. They need to look, from a wide lens, main issues with the game. And if they do that, if they take the grand feedback, which is understanding what makes the game fun or unfun, I think their actual specific feedback will be so much better. And, there are exceptions. Sometimes they do it super well. For example, with Wesker. Wesker was so well designed that when they had community feedback for it, it was basically just like, hey, this hitbox is like a little too small. I can't, I'm sliding past people. Can you fix that? And they're like, okay, fix that. That's it. And then Wesker's pretty much good. He's got a couple of issues like the tunneling thing. They could simply fix it by making conspicuous actions being required to make your infection go down after a hook and stuff like that. But for the most part, very minor changes are needed because they fundamentally understood the feedback of what makes a killer fun and what makes the game itself fun. Compare Wesker to the Skull Merchant, where Wesker, they're like, okay, we'll change the hitbox. We're good. Skull Merchant's like, hey, we need to change literally everything. So that's what I'm talking about. If they took the feedback from players about what made the game fun, they wouldn't need as much specific player feedback because they would be doing the initial thing much better to begin with. And I think if we need to specify more of that fun aspect, it's skill expression. Skill expression is basically your ability to express your skill on the match. That is extremely closely correlated with fun. Something is fun because you use your skill to feel better than your opponents, and that is always a good feeling. So skill expression and fun are very, very closely related, and that is something I think they simply do not understand. They don't understand how important skill expression is, and you can see that from almost every killer they've made in the past year. Skull Merchant, the same exact shit applies. You do the exact same thing. There are no choices to be made against Skull Merchant. It's a flowchart that you must follow every time. The Knight was the exact same way. It's just a flowchart. Your skill doesn't really matter. Even Dredge, you could argue to some extent, is the same kind of anti-loop thing where they plop a thing down and you follow the flowchart and leave the loop. You kind of have to do the same thing. It's a very common design aspect that they have for killers, and unfortunately, it seems like the Singularity is going to be even more of that. So it seems like they're not understanding the skill expression aspect of the game, which is why I think Wesker is such a good design. Because when you're going against Wesker, there's like 20 things you can do. There's 20 things he can do. It's a battle of skill back and forth. And that is actually really fun. And that makes people want to get better at the game, because it's not cool to spend X hours on Survivor only to realize when you go against a specific killer, nothing you've learned has any relevance to anything. That's always a terrible feeling. And that seems to be central to their game design lately. So it doesn't matter if they take incredible feedback and they act on it within a month. They do it super fast, like Skull Merchant. They took a lot of feedback, made a lot of changes very quickly. But as long as the fundamental aspect of the killer doesn't acknowledge skill expression, all the feedback they take, they can be the most receptive company in the world. It won't matter if the blueprint they start with is not good enough. So that's the main issue. How do they fix that? I think they need to take players' feedback on a more global scale and maybe have, I say request this every time I make a video at this point, have a couple of people sign NDAs that you personally know even, that are somewhat knowledgeable about the game, that before you devote resources to making something, you talk to them about it. Because if you bring Skull Merchant to anyone that has more than 200 hours in this game, they're going to go, no, don't do that. What are you doing? If you bring Knight there, they're going to go, okay, this is a huge problem because he's going to just do this, and then it's going to be really boring. If you fix these things at the fundamental level before you start devoting time and money, everybody wins. You save time and money, you spend your time and money towards something that's going to be well received, and then once it's received, the maintenance you need to do on them is very minor. Just a quick hitbox change, a quick number change, a quick add-on change, just something super minor. You don't have to do much anymore. Ironically, you'll actually need to do less frequent updates if the original things that you make are better and they have more skill expression and therefore are more fun. So basically, to summarize everything, they actually have been good at taking feedback. The problem is the things they take feedback on are so fundamentally flawed that all the feedback in the world can't really fix the main issue of it not being fun. And the reason it's not fun is their game design lately does not have much skill expression involved with it. Additionally, maps have been the same type of thing too. Maps have just been getting worse and worse for some reason. Ever since, honestly, Area Crows, it's just been going downhill, just straight downhill. Garden of Joy is bad, Borgo's bad, the new map for the Singularity looks bad, based on the fact that they said they're so proud of how dense it was. They need to realize that fundamentally, these things are not fun. Because, although, yeah, like the 4 stealth killers might love a really congested map, every other killer in the game needs line of sight in some regard to use their power. And if there's a bunch of just shit in the way, it's just not going to be fun. And so just that's what I'm talking about. Just fundamental things about their game are what they need to take feedback on, not specific, hey, this killer has a problem thing. And I think that would save them time and money, and it would save them frustration and maintenance and everything in the long run. That's basically the whole point of the video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.